Jesus' shocking warning about the end times. Most Christians ignore. What if I told you that while most Christians are scanning the headlines for signs of the end times, they're missing the most important sign of all? A sign that's happening right now, in churches across the world, and most believers are completely blind to it. You will be shocked when you find the 4 warnings Jesus gave us. Warning 1. Birth pains in the world. When the disciples asked Jesus about the signs of his return, he gave them a clear, systematic answer. The first sign he mentioned was disasters in the world. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not troubled. For those things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines, pestilences, and earthquakes in various places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Matthew 24, 6-8. Wars, famines, earthquakes, natural disasters. These have been happening for centuries, but Jesus said something crucial about their timing and intensity. All these are the beginning of sorrows. The Greek word translated sorrows is odin, which means birth pains, not death pains, birth pains. This completely changes how we should view world disasters. When you see tragedy in the headlines, when natural disasters increase in frequency and intensity, when wars and conflicts seem to multiply, Jesus says, don't panic. These aren't signs that the world is dying. They're signs that something new is about to be born. But here's what most Christians miss. Birth pains don't just happen randomly. They follow a pattern. They increase in frequency and intensity as the moment of birth approaches. And that's exactly what we're seeing in our generation. The convergence, the acceleration, the intensity, it all points to the same conclusion. We're in the final stages of labor before something unprecedented is born into this world. But while most believers focus exclusively on these external signs, they're missing the sign that Jesus spent the most time explaining. The sign that should concern them most. Sign 2. The transformation inside the church. Here's where most Christians get it completely wrong. They think all the important prophetic signs are external. Wars, earthquakes, political developments. But Jesus devoted more time to describing what would happen inside the church than what would happen in the world. And what he described should terrify every believer. Jesus said 3 things would happen to the church in the end times, and if you look honestly at Christianity today, you'll see all 3 unfolding simultaneously. First, global persecution. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and kill you, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. Matthew 24:9. Notice the scope. All nations. Not some nations. Not most nations. All nations will hate believers. But here's what makes this prophecy so remarkable. For most of church history, Christianity was geographically concentrated. There were Christian nations and non-Christian nations. Believers could flee from hostile territories to friendly ones. There were always safe havens somewhere on earth. That's no longer true. Right now, Christianity is the most persecuted religion on earth. According to Open Doors, over 365 million Christians face high levels of persecution and discrimination. Every day, 13 Christians are killed for their faith. Every day, 12 churches or Christian buildings are attacked or destroyed. Every day, 12 Christians are unjustly arrested or imprisoned. But here's what's changing the entire landscape of Christian persecution. It's no longer confined to traditionally hostile regions. The hatred is becoming truly global, exactly as Jesus predicted. In communist China, churches are being demolished, pastors are being imprisoned, and surveillance technology is monitoring believers' activities. But here's what should shock Western believers. The persecution isn't limited to non-Western nations anymore. Countries that were built on Christian foundations are becoming increasingly hostile to biblical Christianity. In the United States, Christian bakers, florists, and wedding photographers are being sued into bankruptcy for refusing to violate their religious convictions. Christian students are being expelled from universities for expressing biblical views. The legal framework for criminalizing biblical Christianity is being constructed in real time across the Western world. Laws are being passed that redefine religious freedom as freedom from religion, rather than freedom of religion. But here's what makes this persecution uniquely end times in nature. It's coordinated. Nations that disagree about trade, immigration, and foreign policy are mysteriously unified in their approach to restricting Christian influence. International bodies are establishing global standards for limiting religious expression. Multinational corporations are enforcing identical policies regarding Christian beliefs across different countries. For the first time in history, there's nowhere to run. The persecution Jesus predicted is becoming truly global, systematic, and inescapable. Second, the great falling away. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Then many false prophets will rise up and deceive many. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. Matthew 24:10-12. This is perhaps the most heartbreaking aspect of end times prophecy. Jesus didn't just predict that the world would reject him. He predicted that many who claimed to follow him would abandon their faith when pressure mounted. But let me show you just how precisely this prophecy is being fulfilled in our generation. The word offended in the original Greek is skandalizo, meaning to be trapped, ensnared, or caused to stumble by something that becomes a barrier to faith. It describes people who once claimed to believe, but who abandon Christianity because it becomes too costly, too difficult, or too unpopular. Look at what's happening in Western Christianity right now. Churches that held biblical truth for centuries are now officially denying fundamental Christian doctrines. Entire theological seminaries that once trained faithful pastors now teach that the Bible contains errors, that Jesus wasn't uniquely divine, and that all religions lead to God. The very institutions responsible for preparing the next generation of Christian leaders are producing graduates who don't believe basic Christian truths. Sin is rarely mentioned. Hell is never discussed. The need for repentance is minimized. The exclusivity of Christ is downplayed. Worship services have become entertainment events designed to make people feel good about themselves rather than confront them with their need for salvation. The result is a generation of church attenders who have never been genuinely converted. They've been told that Christianity is about self-improvement and personal fulfillment rather than death to self and submission to Christ. When persecution comes, when following Jesus becomes costly, these false converts will abandon faith because they never truly understood what it meant. But Jesus predicted something even more subtle than outright apostasy. He said, "The love of many will grow cold." This describes not passionate rejection of Christianity, but gradual cooling of affection for Christ. Look honestly at the state of Christian commitment today. Church attendance has been declining for decades across the Western world. In 1990, 20.4% of Americans attended church weekly. Today, that number has dropped to 13%. In the United Kingdom, only 2% of the population attends church regularly. In Canada, Australia, and most of Europe, the numbers are similar. But the problem isn't just church attendance, it's the quality of commitment among those who do attend. Their love for Christ isn't hot enough to motivate sacrifice, but it's not cold enough to motivate honest rejection. It's lukewarm, exactly the condition that Jesus said he would spew out of his mouth. Revelation 3:16. And then many will be offended, will betray one another, and will hate one another. Matthew 24:10. This isn't describing conflict between Christians and non-Christians. This is describing Christians betraying other Christians. We're already seeing this happen. Third, global gospel proclamation. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world as a witness to all the nations, and then the end will come. Matthew 24:14. Here's where the prophecy takes a surprising turn that most Christians miss entirely. At the exact same time that the church is being persecuted globally and experiencing massive apostasy, the gospel will be preached to every nation on earth. This seems contradictory until you understand the spiritual dynamic Jesus is describing. As nominal Christianity collapses under pressure, a purified remnant emerges with unprecedented passion for evangelism. The church becomes smaller numerically, but more powerful spiritually. Less popular culturally, but more pure doctrinally. History shows this pattern repeatedly. The most evangelistic periods in church history have often coincided with the most oppressive circumstances. The underground church in communist China experienced explosive growth while facing systematic persecution. The early church spread most rapidly while being hunted by Roman authorities. Persecution doesn't weaken genuine Christianity. It purifies and strengthens it. But our generation has something previous generations never had: global communication technology that makes worldwide evangelism possible for the first time in history. Bible translation projects are accelerating exponentially. Organizations like Wycliffe Bible Translators estimate that every remaining people group could have Scripture in their own language within the next 2 decades. Digital Bible distribution has made Scripture available in regions where physical Bibles would be impossible to smuggle. Christian radio broadcasts now reach every continent. Satellite television carries gospel programming to closed countries. Smartphone apps provide discipleship training to believers in the most remote locations on earth. Social media platforms, despite their efforts to suppress Christian content, have enabled individual believers to share the gospel with thousands of people across cultural and geographical barriers. Persecution in one country now motivates prayer and support from Christians worldwide. While Western Christianity is declining numerically, Christianity is exploding in precisely the regions where it faces the most severe persecution. Now here's what should terrify every believer. These 3 aspects of the church sign are happening simultaneously right now. Global persecution is intensifying. Apostasy is accelerating. Gospel proclamation is advancing. The purification process is underway. The separation between genuine believers and nominal Christians is becoming visible. The wheat and the tares are being revealed by the conditions Jesus predicted. But which category will you fall into when the pressure intensifies? Will you be among those whose love grows cold when following Christ becomes costly? Will you betray other believers to maintain cultural acceptance? Will you abandon biblical truth to avoid persecution? Or will you be among the faithful remnant whose suffering purifies their faith, whose persecution motivates their evangelism, whose losses in this world increase their treasures in the next? Because here's what Jesus made clear about this church transformation. It's not optional, it's inevitable. The process is already underway. The only question is whether you'll emerge from it as refined gold or revealed dross. He who endures to the end shall be saved. Matthew 24:13. Not he who starts well, not he who believes intellectually, not he who attends church regularly when it's convenient. He who endures when endurance becomes the only option. The church sign isn't just about recognizing the times, it's about recognizing the condition of your own heart. And if you're honest about what you see in both, you'll understand why this sign should concern you more than wars, earthquakes, or any external event. Because the question isn't whether these changes are coming to the church. They're already here. The question is whether your faith is genuine enough to survive them. Sign 3. Jerusalem's ultimate crisis. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. Then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Matthew 24:15-16. Jesus pointed to a specific prophecy from the book of Daniel about something called the abomination of desolation. This refers to a future world leader who will enter the rebuilt temple in Jerusalem, declare himself to be God, and demand worship from all humanity. This is the only sign that Jesus said demands immediate action. Flee to the mountains. Don't pack. Don't gather belongings. Don't even go back into your house. Run. Why such urgency? Because this event triggers the Great Tribulation, a period of suffering so intense that Jesus said, unless those days were shortened, no human would survive. But here's what's remarkable about this prophecy. For nearly 2,000 years, it seemed impossible to fulfill. There was no temple in Jerusalem. The Jewish people were scattered worldwide. There was no mechanism for global worship or global persecution. Today, for the first time since 70 AD, all the conditions necessary for this prophecy are falling into place. Israel has been re-established. Jerusalem is under Jewish control. Temple Institute organizations are preparing for the Third Temple. The technology exists for global surveillance and control. The closer we get to seeing a temple rebuilt in Jerusalem, the closer we are to the final countdown. Sign 4. Cosmic blackout and the King's return. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then the sign of the Son of Man will appear in heaven, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Matthew 24:29-30. The fourth and final sign is unmistakable. All natural light in the universe will be extinguished. The sun goes dark. The moon stops shining. The stars fall from the sky. This isn't symbolic language. This is literal cosmic transformation. God turns off the lights of heaven to prepare for the blazing glory of Christ's return. When this happens, there will be no possibility of deception. No false messiahs can duplicate cosmic blackout. No false prophets can counterfeit the sun going dark worldwide. The world will panic in terror. Believers will rejoice in anticipation. And then the sky will split open like lightning flashing from east to west. And every eye will see the King of Kings returning in power and glory. But here's what you need to understand about this sequence. These signs build on each other. The cosmic blackout comes immediately after the tribulation. The abomination of desolation triggers the tribulation. The church's transformation sets the stage for the abomination. Everything is connected. Everything is building toward a climax. And if you're not watching the right signs, you'll miss the progression. After describing these 4 signs, Jesus gave a simple illustration that most Christians completely misunderstand. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see all these things, know that it is near, at the doors. Matthew 24:32-33. This isn't an allegory about Israel being the fig tree. This isn't a metaphor with hidden meanings. This is a straightforward analogy from everyday experience. When you see a fig tree budding, you know summer is approaching. When you see these prophetic signs converging, you know Christ's return is approaching. The key word is all. Not some of these signs, not a few of these signs. When you see all these signs happening simultaneously, you can know His return is at the doors. Birth pains in the world, increasing in frequency and intensity. Transformation in the church, persecution rising, apostasy spreading, gospel advancing, Jerusalem in focus, temple preparations, international attention, prophetic setup, cosmic signs. Not yet, but everything else is in place. We're living in the first generation in history to see 3 of the 4 signs converging simultaneously. The only sign we haven't seen yet is the cosmic blackout, and that comes immediately before Christ appears. Our generation is the first to see all the pieces of the prophetic puzzle coming together simultaneously. But here's what breaks my heart about how most Christians respond to biblical prophecy. They treat it like entertainment. They get excited about speculating on timing and details, but they ignore the warning that runs through every prophetic passage. Jesus didn't give us these signs to satisfy our curiosity. He gave them to prepare us for crisis. But take heed to yourselves, lest your hearts be weighed down with carousing, drunkenness, and cares of this life, and that day come on you unexpectedly. Luke 21:34. The danger isn't that you won't recognize the signs. The danger is that you won't be spiritually ready when they culminate. Look honestly at your own heart. Is your love for Christ growing stronger or cooling off? Are you more concerned with biblical truth or cultural acceptance? When pressure comes, and Jesus promised it will come, will your faith prove genuine or superficial? The same pressures that are causing nominal Christians to fall away are designed to purify true believers. The persecution that's intimidating false converts is meant to embolden genuine disciples. But which category will you fall into? That's not determined by your circumstances. It's determined by the condition of your heart right now. Jesus isn't coming back for a comfortable, popular, culturally accepted church. He's coming back for a persecuted, purified, passionate church that has been refined by fire and proven genuine through testing. He's looking for believers who love Him more than their own lives, who value truth more than acceptance, who choose faithfulness over comfort. The question isn't whether these signs are unfolding. They clearly are. The question is whether you're part of the faithful remnant that will endure to the end, or part of the majority whose love grows cold when following Christ becomes costly. Because here's what Jesus made crystal clear: he who endures to the end shall be saved. Matthew 24:13. Not he who starts well, not he who believes intellectually, not he who attends church regularly, he who endures to the end. The signs are converging. The birth pains are intensifying. The church is being transformed. Jerusalem is moving toward crisis. But most importantly, your heart is being tested right now. Your response to pressure today determines your readiness for pressure tomorrow. Don't sleep. Don't settle. Don't follow comfort over truth. Because Jesus already told us the signs, and they're unfolding all around us. The only question is whether you're watching with the eyes of faith, or missing them because you're looking in the wrong direction. The greatest end-time sign isn't in the sky. It's in your own heart. And if you miss that sign, all the others won't matter. Heaven and earth will pass away, but His words will never pass away. And His word to this generation is clear. Watch, pray, endure, because summer is near, and the King is at the door.
Many seem to be confused because they do not understand the book of Revelation. However, what if there was an animation showing the entire book? Well, we created that. And to watch that, click here.